Emmy van Deurzen. Welcome and thank you very much for being my guest today.
It's a pleasure, Barbara. Thank you.
Well, you are a world-known philosopher, psychiatrist. Your experience is more than 50 years long. You are also the pioneer of existential psychotherapy. So many things to talk that I hope will benefit to our dance community.
Mm.
But as we are dancers, I would first like to ask you, do you like dancing?
I love dancing. I've always loved dancing. I think anybody who is really embodied in life loves dancing and loves music, and they go together. So, yes, it's a wonderful way to express yourself and to relax if you do it in a non-professional way.
Yeah, just for pleasure. Do you have any favorite dance?
Sorry?
Do you have a favorite dance?
Oh, favorite dance. Well, I did practice the Argentinian tango for a few years. I did enjoy that particularly, yes.
Uh-huh. Anyway, as you are a philosopher and a pioneer of applying existential philosophy into therapy, would you be so kind and briefly explain to our listeners what is existential philosophy and what is existential psychotherapy?
Okay, so they're going together for me. So existential philosophy is are all the philosophies that seek to understand what it means to be alive, to be a human being.
Mhm.
So it's a very wide range of philosophies, but there was a movement in philosophy in the middle of the 20th century called existentialism because it became fashionable to talk about existence in that particular way. But my existential philosophy goes way beyond that, and I include, for instance, the Athenian philosophers like Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, and I include people like the Dutch philosopher Spinoza, and I include a lot of contemporary philosophy as well. So I will find information and knowledge on human existence wherever it can be found. And that includes in psychology and in anthropology and sociology as well. It's just about finding out as much about how to live your life in a better way as is possible and use all the resources at your disposal and then make sense of it and apply it to real life. In
Mhm.
existential therapy, that's what we do with our clients. We have this as the basis of our therapeutic work, and that means rather than focusing on just psychological problems, and seeing the cause of people's difficulties, like in their childhood exclusively, or in what was done to them by their parents, for instance. We look at the way in which a person is in the world, moves in the world, if you like, is connected to all the different layers, all the different aspects of their existence, and help them become more at ease with that, understand it better, be more aware of the pressures that make them feel the way they do, make them more aware of their own feelings and what they tell them about their values and about their purpose in life. And it's all very much about making life more meaningful, understanding it better, and having a much clearer sense of the direction you're going in life.
Well, our dance community worldwide definitely faces some struggles and difficulties, and I believe we could improve situations, repair or rebuild certain things on personal and also on collective level. And I would like to start with competitors. So people who are involved in competitive ballroom and Latin American dancing, as they struggle like coaches as well, like adjudicators.
Mm.
And what would be a healthy way to frame competition
Haha.
in
That
your
is
view?
That is such a big question, isn't it? Because that doesn't just apply to dance, that applies to our whole society, to the entirety of contemporary civilization, which has become so super competitive,
Yes.
where everybody is set against everybody else. And it feels as if only if you are the first or the best can you find any sense of satisfaction or even feel that you're a worthy human being. So
Mhm.
that whole setup in our world is very toxic. And when you work within a sport or an art, if you prefer, like competitive dancing, then obviously you're going to be confronted with how that affects you.
Mhm.
And that means that very slowly but surely, all your colleagues become competitors instead of just friends or peers, and that you forget that you are a human being before you are a dancer. There are many dangers in that frame of mind, and having worked with, a few people in that situation, I became acutely aware, and this is true with musicians as well, by the way, that there is a kind of loss of integrity in the person. They become so acutely focused on that battle, on that struggle for survival, as it were, that life becomes very thin, it becomes very narrow, it becomes very difficult. So the boundaries become very tight in your life. And the objective has got to be to move those boundaries again and make room to breathe again and to be yourself again instead of just being focused on that competition. So the competition narrows you down and you need to counteract it by expanding again. It's like a movement thing almost. And to see competitions not as the be all and end all, as can happen very quickly, and becoming like a battleground or a war, even something people fear and dread, and that cast shadows over their lives. It's very important to counteract that and to see that the competition is really just a given space and time in which you can experience your capacity to show off your what you have achieved, who you have become, and to be with others and learning from them instead of being anxiously watching, them going wrong or being less good than you, learning from them, seeing what you can take from them as well as from your own performance, and not aiming to win, but aiming to be the best you can be and enjoy that. So it's about reclaiming your broad humanness and reclaiming the embodied art that is yours instead of allowing that to press you down in this more and more competitive way of being.
Yeah.
It's about kind of embodied self-discovery, about growing as a person, about learning more and more about movement, about how to be present in the world, and also how to be under pressure, because these kinds of tests, these kinds of competitions allow you to prove to yourself how you can be calm and open and really engaged with pressurized times and be willing to, feel what you're feeling instead of forcing yourself to be a certain way.
Mm. Well, competitors deal with performance anxiety, for example, variety of fears, and how to deal with that. Actually, I wanted to ask you first, could you explain the difference between fear and anxiety?
Yeah. So fear is always about something specific. So you are afraid of a car coming at you and running you over. You are afraid of somebody who might hit you. You are afraid of an actual danger, a tangible thing in the world. And that fear gives you an immediate response of either fighting back, fight or flight, either fighting back or fleeing from the danger if it is too great. And there is the third option of freezing when you can't flee anymore and you can't fight because your opponent is so much stronger than you. So then you freeze. So a lot of performers actually experience fear. They actually fear that the public will judge them or the jury will judge them. They fear an actual danger, and so they might become frozen. But
Mhm.
really, more often than not, what people experience is anxiety, performance anxiety, what we call stage fright. But
Mhm.
that is really existential anxiety, and anxiety does not have an object. Anxiety is the energy you feel rising inside of you in the face of an open field of nothing. So fear is of something and anxiety is of nothing. So you feel anxiety when you are presented with a blank page, with an open stage, with a space within which to show yourself, within which to take responsibility and to be the best you can be. And the feeling of butterflies is the feeling of that rising energy, the energy that you need in order to do what you need to do. So it is actually something quite different because it is about showing yourself and proving yourself rather than about saving yourself or running away. And I think to distinguish between those two states is a good start.
Mhm. What is the impact of self-doubt, for example, in that kind of situations?
Yeah, well, self-doubt is hugely important in that because if you think you are not entitled to be in that space, or you think you are not prepared to do well in that space, or you have come to not actually want to be in that space, then your anxiety is going to take over and it will be impossible to use the energy with confidence and elegance and, with everything you know. So it is very important to work with that self-doubt because self-doubt is going to really stop you using your anxiety and shining in that moment and feeling that energy building you up to perform beautifully, you know. It is about rediscovering your love of what you do very often. When people have self-doubt, it is very often because they have become perfectionistic or they compare themselves to others too much or they have become burned out by constantly punishing themselves or working too hard and being too hard on themselves. So it is about relaxing back into remembering you're doing what you love And what you love needs to be, reconnected with. The love of being in your body, the love of moving with your body, the love of moving beautifully with your body, the love of being with a partner, the love of committing to the dance that you have created, of committing to the meanings you are expressing in that moment, and to reclaim that for yourself. I mean, that is a big job, and self-doubt can be very undermining. But it is very important to take it seriously and to start to build it up from the bottom up again, because you cannot possibly perform well if you're constantly fighting things like that. So it's got to be undone. The self-doubt has to be understood and has to be worked with.
Mhm. And then when the competitive career is over and you are not anymore under the spotlight and you have to maybe find another identity, not continue living with this one-sided identity, being a champion, which is based on results and medals and titles and achievements. So how to cope with that?
Well, I think that is something you need to be preparing for in small ways all the time, because when people have just had a particular competition, they often feel the same way, don't they? Even if they've done really well, when the applause dies, they kind of feel starved of that admiration or that validation of who they are, and they can experience this kind of existential vacuum and fall into a hole, as it were. And if the competition stops, completely because you've come to a certain age and you think the time has come to retire, then you need to be already prepared for understanding how the build up towards, the anxiety of the performance has actually become an important part of your life. But learning to come down from that and to release that tension and to relax and to nurture yourself and to acknowledge that you're a lot more than this performance. You're also the person at rest, and you can look after yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Then you are already recalibrating yourself along the way, and you're preparing yourself for the replenishment you need to be able to do for yourself when the time has come to let go. So that means the ground you build on needs to be a little bit wider and broader than just this dancing career, than just you as a competitive performer. It needs to have other elements to it. You need to build a more multi-dimensional identity, if you like, and to to get ready for retirement. You can't just do that from one day to the next. You have to build a platform on which you can retire and have some idea of, finding a new way to enjoy yourself and to develop yourself and to look forward to that, because it releases you from a lot of pressures. And now you can, engage with things you never had time for.
Well, most of competitors after retirement, they would continue being dance teachers, coaches, adjudicators. So in a way, competition continues.
Yes,
And as
can,
well,
yes.
often we find ourselves in a conflict between, let's say, personal identity and identity of a certain group or organization you belong to. Um, how to deal with that kind of conflicts?
Well, this is something we all have in common, In every line of work, this is what happens. We are always having to find a way between shining as an individual and being part of a wider group that we contribute something to, and that also in turn contributes something to us as well. So to be able to do that is not something that comes suddenly. It is something that you need to attend to. And part of that is about conflict management, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about how we are with other people that we feel in conflict with or who we feel get in our way. And what I find with people who are in competitive fields is that they often experience competition as something that they must win rather than as something that is helpful for all of us to perfect ourselves. They think instead that they must be the best one rather than seeing how competition is a way of each of us informing each other about how we can improve and to value that. So, conflict in that is not about failure. It is not that, you should have been the top dog. It is about realizing that there is learning we do together, and to be nurtured by each other makes our performance a great deal better, and it allows us to relax into it rather than being on edge the whole time. It is about actually having shared projects with other people, and those shared projects become more and more important after your competitive career as such is over. You don't want to become the kind of adjudicator who puts pressure on people to perform and to conform and to do things just so. You want to be a facilitative person who brings the most out of people and sees how different people do things in different ways and allow that differentiation, that difference. We're all different, and each of us needs to find the peace inside of ourselves to allow that to blossom and flourish in ourselves.
Well, when you are an adjudicator in competitive dancing, you are normally also a coach.
Mm,
So you are, at the end of the day, evaluating your own product as well.
yeah,
But that there are also other products on the field. So we are
yes,
dealing with bias, with, well, how to deal with being objective, rather subjective, how
yes.
not to make deals out of fear with other peers and colleagues to help each other and support each other. So
Mhm,
simply
mhm.
question would be how to work for fairness and transparency and equal possibilities for all competitors who are on the floor, rather being protective, for example, towards your own customers or those who are filling your pocket the most often.
Well, these are all really ethical and moral issues
Mm.
you're mentioning now, aren't they? And I think those should be part of the teaching you do and of the coaching you do, not just to remind yourself as a coach that you are not just pushing one product, as you say, but that you are actually teaching each of the people you give tuition to open up as much as they can, to grow as much as they can, and teach them freedom, and teach them fairness, and teach them to be authoritative about how they make choices in how they do that, and to be collaborative with other people. So it's all these existential values that are actually key parts of what you should be doing. And you know better than I do what happens when that isn't the case, when those values fall down the wayside and people become pushy and inequitable and conflicted completely, and all agency is lost, and it feels like everybody is in a sinking ship, and it is hardly worth carrying on because you can't trust people anymore. So when that trust is gone and you find yourself in turf wars instead, time has come maybe to bring in an external expert about conflict resolution, or looking at the morals and the ethics of the situation, and to actually repair what is going on in that situation, because you can't really function when things get out of hand like that. And I have seen situations like that, and I have been called into situations like that, not just within dance, but in other organizations, you know. Sometimes organizations do lose the plot like that.
Yeah, we do have, well, for the past 2 decades, several organizations and federations worldwide. You know, in the past was very simple. We had professional and
Uh,
amateur, and they were quite cooperative.
uh,
And then everything started to divide. So
right.
now we have at least four strong organizations and practically no communication in between
Oh
or
gosh.
cooperation. So we do have, of course, each organization, federation has their own world and European championship. So we have a lot of world champions, you know.
Right, I
So I'm
see.
often thinking how to, however, start trying to bring worldwide dance community back together, because I believe
Mm.
that in spite of different schools of thought and different
Mm.
maybe priorities and so on, we could profit coming back together.
That sounds like a really good idea, Barbara. Maybe this should be your project to
Oh,
create. You know, we have this in the field of psychotherapy too. And what I did is to create a world congress for existential therapy and bring all the different organizations in different countries and, you know, different methods together. And that's been incredibly fruitful. Maybe dance is ready for that and needs a kind of international symposium, not just to discuss how you could work together, but to work with each other and to have this wider kind of feeling of things being held together. It could be a very good experience.
yeah, and especially I think with experts of your caliber, you know, who are not directly involved, but you can offer a lot of insight and knowledge where maybe we don't have it enough. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, morals, ethics, how to guide really a creative dialogue with opposite party. I think we have a lot to learn as well in
Yeah.
order to grow capacity to come together.
I think that's absolutely right. That is very wise indeed. You have to first be committed to that process of coming together, and then you have to understand how it can be done. And then you have to probably have some guidance in actually making it happen in a way that is truly inclusive and where people are truly curious about bringing the different elements and the different organizations together. And they truly believe that everybody will gain from that, you know, instead of having this kind of divisiveness and exclusion and be marred by being in kind of different silos. You would gain a sense of sort of heterogeneity, of allowing different things to stand, but to be collaborative. I mean, that would benefit everybody, wouldn't it? But it
Well,
needs a kind of, understanding of how to have accountability, how to facilitate each other, how to be gracious and forgive. There must be all kinds of past problems that have happened in that and conflicts that haven't been resolved. I've seen it so many times. There's a lot of work to be done before you can bring things like that together.
yeah, and maybe starting first on individual level to be capable to reflect through your own history and
Mm,
maybe to ask yourself, what is your own vision? Would you like to stay safe in a particular small environment where,
yes.
you have your garden and everything
Yeah.
blossoms there, or you are willing to step more towards being more open and
Yes. Well, my
collaborative?
approach to that would always be people can have both. They can still have their safe environment and they can still have their organizations around that. But, once a year or twice a year, it is great to come together with the other ones and to have this feeling of the wider umbrella that protects us all and that brings a new enthusiasm and new opportunities
Mhm.
for everybody.
Mm. Well, let's
It's
hope
like
that,
the United Nations.
yeah, well,
People still want to have their individual countries with their
yes,
own sovereignty,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they're quite happy to come together with the others because it gives a sense of belonging. And
Mhm.
I think if you can create that objective of having both and having that greater sense of belonging together, then people will want to do that.
Well, we could definitely also learn a lot from each other, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
But thinking about mental health in
Mm,
performance culture, uh, observing, what's going on, how many struggles there are there, not just
mm,
anxiety, depression. Um,
mm.
how you experienced, let's say, mental health in performance culture with all addictions also coming along and
Yes, yes. Well, a lot of that is about fear and anxiety, but it is also about, I think, people not knowing how to be resilient, how to be emotionally, as I said before, in flow, with being quite tense and focused at times and then releasing and letting go at other times. They lose track of that flow of existence. They get out of the sort of natural cycle of homeostasis because it's so competitive and there's so much riding on it. And very often with things like dance or not so much with music, but it's true in other performing arts as well. With actors, for instance, the feeling is often of the time being so short in which you can prove yourself and the fear of becoming too old. I think that is a problem. So doing work with acceptance of those time cycles and having a sense of what is beyond this particular cycle are also important. And it's also about being aware of what you're doing to yourself when you are in performing professions, especially in dance, I think. And that's true in ballet as well, in modern dance as well, is that you teach yourself to be constantly under scrutiny. And I think when I've worked with people in that field, that is what has struck me the most, really, as a real problem people become so focused on how they come across, how they appear. They're constantly watching themselves in a mirror, or they're looking back at themselves, on recordings, and they're
All the
actually
time.
sitting with the recordings
Yeah.
and judging themselves. So they become highly focused on external appearance and on self-judgment. And I think this is a real problem.
Mhm.
So what you have to learn to do is unfocus from that. There's got to be, you got to be taught to unfocus from that. There's got to be much more dancing without mirrors and cameras. There's got to be returning to the natural state of feeling what it is like to move your body, not how it looks when you move your body, but what it feels like to you and what you are expressing. So much more work on your emotions and your emotional expression through your body and anchoring yourself back at the center of your body, sort of, degazing from that self-awareness all the time. And put boundaries to the time you spend on criticizing yourself. But I think it's also about coaches learning to give feedback in a much more productive and creative and cooperative way rather than in a more critical way. I have observed quite a lot of high level of criticality and judgment that is ruinous to a person's confidence unless you're very tough, uh, and you don't care anymore. It can be extremely destructive. And of course, you don't want the person to become that tough because, yes, they need to be resilient. They need to be able to go into that environment and not care too much and not fall apart and have the stamina and have the confidence. But you don't want them to become hard and uncaring and not listen to feedback anymore because they've learned to basically dismiss it or only take it in appearance but not in an actual way. So there is a lot about that. And I think possibly it might be good to actually emphasize more the creativity of mistakes, to have workshops where people really make something of the mistakes. They look at what they tend to do wrong and then ask themselves whether this may be something that they can turn into their way of doing things. That is actually part of a particular mark they can, a particular stamp they can put on their work. So it's part of a creative process rather than being about faults or critiquing or not being good enough. So those be some of the things I have observed that I think need work on with mostly with people who are in that field.
Mhm. Coaches and teachers.
Also,
Yes.
yeah, equally. I
Equal,
think
yeah.
coaches get very worried about not being good enough as a coach. I think they make each other anxious sometimes, the teacher and the coach. They are part of the same kind of obsession with the success and with the appearance. And instead, I think they need to learn, both of them, to be more at ease with groundlessness, with not getting it right, with playing with it, and not feeling that somebody else will dismiss them because of it, will destroy them because of it. And there's too much of that going on in the world, people destroying each other and disapproving of each other. Liberating yourself from that kind of strain on you, that kind of stress in your life, is probably the most important way in which you can enjoy your work more and free yourself up to be better at the same time, paradoxically.
Yeah. Well, also for the dancers, especially maybe younger ones who have to deal not only with expectations of their teachers and coaches, but also expectations of their parents. Because many parents would live their dreams through their children, even when
Yep.
they grow up. And similar happens as well with coaching sometimes, you know?
Yeah, well, because they've often been through that process themselves as well. So it's just a continuation, really.
Yeah.
But are you saying the coach becomes like the parent was before? So the dancer is stuck with a coach who has stepped straight into that role of the overachieving parent who is pushing them the whole time.
Yeah, both is happening. You
Yeah,
know, there are coaches who would claim this is my couple. So there is a little bit of a sense of ownership because
yeah.
I'm working with them. This is my couple, my children. But then, beside that, couples have to deal also with expectations of their own true biological parents. So they are not in an easy situation.
No. So working with the dancers, with the couples to reclaim ownership of themselves rather than be owned by the parents or the coach may be a very important thing to do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To reclaim their own initiative and their own artistic freedom and their own sense of what feels right and their own aspirations rather than acting out somebody else's agenda, and becoming essentially like a slave, you know. It's quite scary, isn't it? It's as if the coach has these horses, you know, parading for them, and they own the couples like you would own the horses to go racing for you. It starts to feel like that, doesn't it? It's very unhealthy, that situation, and that can only lead to bad performances and disappointments because the dancers themselves will feel a reluctance and an aversion against that. And they will constantly spend energy suppressing this aversion in themselves, won't they? It's just no way to be. It's no way to live. So I hope that my book on existential freedom is actually highly relevant in that situation and would teach you to reclaim your own right to decide who you're going to be and how you're going to be and how you're going to move and who you're going to move with, you know?
Many decisions to take here and a lot of courage necessary.
Right.
Recently, I was following your lecture online, which was um, existential courage as antidote to existential anxiety or
Anxiety.
opposite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Would you
absolutely.
say a little bit about, because we do live through kind of existential crisis on individual level and also on a collective one. So how to go out of that anxiety and where to find this courage? What would
Yes.
you advise?
Absolutely. Well, existential courage, I think, is absolutely central and vital for all of us, not just in in dancing, but in living your life. But of course, I consider dance to be very much the representation of life. I often speak to my clients who have nothing to do with the world of dance as life being like a dance or rejoining the dance of life. And that is To rejoin the dance of life, you need to find your existential courage. Now, existential courage is defined as doing the living despite the fact that you are afraid and that you are anxious, despite the fact that you feel you are faced with a threat to your very being, you still step forward and you still go your path and you discover step by step, slowly but surely, that life is based on practice, that your freedom comes from learning more and more skills, more and more knowledge, getting more and more at ease with all the challenges that you will meet. And instead of fearing and dreading those challenges, to actually embrace them and say, here I come. I go towards them. I do not have to hide. I do not have to avoid them. I trust myself to learn to tackle each of these problems. And if I can't do it yet now, I will learn it over the next days or weeks or months. Life is a journey of exploration, and it is a learning process constantly. And in that learning, I build my existential courage. And dancing or learning to dance really, really well is the epitome of that. It symbolizes, it expresses this very process of learning to embrace life to the full in an embodied way and with an open heart and without the fear of being judged or found to be wanting or found to be failing in some form or shape. It is to learn to trust yourself. And it is also to learn to trust life. It is to learn to trust that life gives you a framework and a process that will sustain you in the same way in which you learn to trust your body, because your body is a framework that is absolutely perfectly made to heal you and support you every step of the way. In the same way, life is a process, is a structure that sustains you. But you have to learn to align with it. You have to reach out to it. You have to be connected to it. You have to allow the courage and you have to allow the process of life to lift you up, to support you, to carry you. And that changes the way you are in it completely.
And what about when you feel really down, depressed, when there's no meaning anymore? You kind
Well,
of lose the purpose. What would be the first steps out of that kind of
the
desperate state?
first thing I think when somebody comes to me in that state of mind is that I know from long experience and all of my learning that when a person is like that, it is because they haven't let go of the things they feel they're losing. If a person is stuck in that low position, it is because the elasticity has gone out of them, the flexibility has gone out of them. They have become so scared that things will go wrong, and they feel so bad about the things they feel they have lost, and they haven't done the grieving. They haven't said, oh yes, I failed that test, or I lost that particular prize, or I did that wrong. That is sad. I'm sorry about that. I feel bad. Let me have a cry. Let me see what happened. They haven't done that. They've just kind of hung on to it and not wanting to think about it and tightened up. And so they stay tightened up in a ball, and they are no longer available to open up, feel the anxiety of the new. They don't want the new because they haven't yet dealt with the old remnants of what went wrong. So, when a person is in that state, they first need to release that tension, to bring out of themselves all the things that have gone wrong, all the losses they have suffered, all the bad feelings they have had that they've swallowed instead of worked with. And they need to be allowed to just regurgitate it and talk about it and do nothing for a bit and let it all hang out and learn to breathe again and learn to cry again and learn to understand that their tension is too great, that they're holding on too fast to this perfectionism, and that the letting go is part of the art.
Mhm.
And so you can do that with movement so really, really well. You can get people to be in that process. I mean, I sometimes do it. It's about teaching a person to sigh with their whole body. Oh no, oh no. And really go with it and then lie on the floor and really, and some anger may come out and they may. So I would work physically with that process and allow them to express everything that is stuck, that is stopping them feeling both the anxiety and the desire and the courage to go with their desire and to build something up again. They're basically giving up on themselves.
So in a way, it's actually a cycle which
It's a
we
circle, and you
live
need to allow
consistently.
them to go round.
Mhm.
And when you get stuck in that bottom bit, then you get, stuck there for people can get stuck there for years, Barbara. They can get depressed and stay in their room and never go out and never do a thing.
So
And to
go out
release
and do
that.
something.
Well, not yet, not yet. That's too big a challenge. Be safe, find your safety again, and in that safety, release the losses. That's the first step. And as you release the losses and you're with that again, you feel it again, then other feelings will come. Feelings of shame will come, and feelings of guilt will come, feelings of lost time will come, feelings of regret will come. But with that will also come feelings of envy for other people who are doing well, and that can sweep you up back towards what you desire and what you want to achieve. But it's got to be done by claiming your own process, your own memories, your own experiences, and not make them taboo, not feeling you just have to put a brave face on it and you have to keep going.
Mhm. Yeah, pretending
Pretending,
outward that
exactly.
everything is perfect, but really you struggle inside.
This is always the thing, isn't it? When you're a performer, the
Mhm.
tendency is to stick with the smile and to keep pretending, and that pretense makes the depth of your performance thinner and thinner and thinner.
Mhm.
And the really great performers, the ones that touch you and that move you, they move you because the movement that they show you doesn't come at the surface. It isn't the perfect
Mhm.
positioning. No, It is the warmth of the depth of their feeling. When they reach out to the other, you know they have felt that passion. They know what they're doing. And the public knows it too, because we resonate with it. It's direct. Our bodies will pick that up, and the energy, the way that resonates, touches our own energy, and we feel literally touched by the magic of those people's experience and the depth of their performance. And this is the only real problem. How do you get your people back to that depth of trust in life and in themselves so that they deeply allow it? That starts with allowing the fear, the failure, the doubt, the disappointments, the missed opportunities, all those losses. Without that, there will be nothing,
Mhm.
just surface.
Mhm. Wow, I could listen to you forever, Emmy. But before we finish, I'm now in the middle of reading this gorgeous last book you wrote, Beginning to Live, The Art of Existential Freedom. I
Yeah,
believe this is book number 21.
it is.
Is
Yes.
it?
Well done. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it is also my first book for a wider public. So the first 20 books were all academic books, all written for psychotherapists, psychologists, trainers,
Well, experts of your
students,
kind, yes?
experts.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but reading
This
it,
is for ordinary people.
yes, and it's so nice to feel uh, with all these examples you give insight that, yeah, you are still working consciously on putting your effort and all your experience and giving it out to a general public that we will be able to cope with our lives better, with more meaning and purpose, more um, love for each other and
Absolutely.
empathy.
Yes,
Yes, and
yes,
I just
yes. You do
wanted,
well to
could you?
mention that word. Yes.
Oh, yes, so it's, well, the book resonates it, put it that
Mhm.
way, because what I love the most is maybe that you covered, or the concept of the book goes through basic layers of our existence, so through physical, social, personal, and spiritual. Uh,
Mm.
and of course, each of these levels are very unique, and on another hand, so interdependent and
Yeah.
connected, and create our wholeness. Uh,
Yes.
However, I wanted just to ask you what were driving you that you were writing something for general audience and not only for your professional
Yes.
environment.
Well, it's really about writing for the clients, isn't it? So
Yeah.
these are all the things that people have to discover when they come to psychotherapy to try and solve their difficult life problems. And it became very important to me to make that available to people outside of the psychotherapeutic encounter, because not everyone can afford to come for psychotherapy or
Yeah.
wants to become dependent on a psychotherapist. And I felt that we're kind of holding it to ourselves, but we should share it with people and make it available, because I became more and more aware that we're living in a culture where we have a mental health crisis, and the numbers of people who are depressed and anxious are just going up all the time, and it's not getting any better. The numbers of people who live with psychomedication is huge. It's quite bizarre. You know, I think we can do a lot better than that. We don't have to turn it into a medical problem. We don't have to wait until it becomes unlivable and impossible. We can learn to deal with all of these problems and understand, as we were saying about dance, to understand that each of those difficulties is a challenge and therefore an opportunity to get more skilled and to learn the craft of living in the same way in which you learn the craft of dancing. You got to learn the art of living too. And we don't teach people the art of living. So that is really my project. And for quite a few years now, I have been speaking about this on my YouTube videos to a general public. So I got something like 1,400 YouTube videos about every topic you can think about, and I continue to do that. But I hadn't done the book, and this is what I wanted to do for a very long time, to kind of bring it all together and to summarize it. And that was a big project. It took me well over 4 years to write that book because I kept writing too much, and I had to distill out the things that were actually important, because otherwise it's overwhelming and it becomes too big.
Mhm. Well, what to say, Amy? I noticed that you plan to visit my country, Slovenia, in
Yes,
autumn. Is that
yes, that's
true?
true. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
For what
yes.
purpose?
Oh, it's just an existential organization that has invited me to come do some teaching for them.
Is it going to be public as well? Some of the lectures there?
I'm not quite sure. I haven't quite gotten to the fine agreements yet. You know, I tend to agree dates with people a long time ahead, and then closer to the time we refine what we're actually doing. So, but yes, I think it might be open to the public. You might be able to come if you wanted to.
Oh, definitely. And I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of dancers and dance teachers from my country would be very interested to attend
Okay, okay,
because some
cool.
are following you on your YouTube channels.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
that's nice to hear.
And
That's nice to
really,
hear.
this last book, I think it is a beautiful read, whether you are a competitor, a parent, a teacher, an adjudicator, because, as you said, it is about the art of living, and actually, we can learn the art of living through dancing as well.
Exactly. If you do that career in the right way,
Mm,
you will be learning about life the whole time. And that could naturally lead to you becoming a movement teacher or even an existential teacher of some sort. We have had many dancers come to train as existential therapists because there is this natural connection there.
exactly. Exactly. I feel that myself as well.
Mm.
And I observe my interest going more and more into that direction.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, thanks to you. Well, actually, on the first place, thanks to Ruth, who first
Yes,
introduced me to you nearly
yes, it
10 years
was Ruth.
ago. Um,
Yes,
what I wanted to say at the end, Amy, is it's really, I feel it as a privilege and honor that you took your time and so willingly talk to me. I'm sure that dancers worldwide will enjoy your wisdom and insight and little uh, solutions you offered. So thank you really very much.
wonderful, wonderful. Well, I might invite you at some point to give a talk about dance to our annual um, Festival of Life, where we bring the arts and philosophy together. So it is something that I think makes life much, much better if we bring all the different arts into our lives and we bring our understanding of living into our arts.
And I truly hope you will be willing to stay with us also in the future. As we noticed, we need your wisdom, your experience, knowledge, and yeah, we need to come together and maybe reconnect and evaluate what we can share as a society and how we
Absolutely
can
right.
be connected. Yeah,
I agree completely, Barbara. And thank you for making it happen. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for having this conversation. I've enjoyed it very much indeed. And it has reminded me of how much I did enjoy working with Ruth and the dancers because it has this holistic feel about it, doesn't it?
it has. And make sure you will take some more tango lessons in the near future. Thank you
See
very
you.
much, Evie.
Bye
Take
bye.
care and
Bye for
we'll
now.
stay in
Bye.
touch.
Yeah,
Yes.
we will.
Yes.
Bye.